Hey, welcome to It's Show Business Podcast. We have a great episode for you today. It's with Isak Allen. He's a comedian, musician, door guy at the Comedy Store, doing commercials for American Airlines, was on Westworld. We cover a lot of topics today, a lot of music production talk, which is really fun for our music fans, diving into that. It's a great episode. You're going to love it. Please subscribe to the pod. It's the best way to support us. Thank you, and please enjoy the episode. Well, Isak Allen, thanks for doing the podcast.
Yeah.
Hey, pan to the left again. What was that?
There's just a bunch of shit. I got my drum set over there too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. That's what I used to record all my drum covers on.
Yeah, I was listening to your the music you just put out there. It's kind of like country-ish, pop-ish.
Oh, the Spotify, the stuff on Spotify or whatever?
Yeah.
Country. I've never gotten that one before.
I mean, like, not like country, like I have a hat and a dog and a shotgun country, but like kind of like bluesy, kind of like, you know, pop country.
The good country, hopefully. The old country.
Like the country, like the way Taylor Swift is country. Like, you know?
That's funny. I was so going for like, that's why I like putting out my own music, is because I feel like every genre is in there somewhere. Yeah. Like there's like a folksy country, sort of like groovy, swampy, you know, but like major key, happy, poppy, like the song Reason to Stay is like that. But then there's like a funk bridge just out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Slapping bass and shit. And I'm like, all right. I just don't know how to I wish I knew how to mix better. I don't know how to mix well. I spent countless hours like researching it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was a mixer, and so I heard a couple of things that you could do to make that balance.
If you could give me any advice, because I just don't even know what I did. Maybe it's just a bad ear. Maybe I just have a bad ear for mixing. But no,
it's like there's like a saturation point too. It's like you listen, and sometimes it's just nice to have a different perspective of someone else being like, hey, how about we do this or do that? That's why you hand it off too. Like mixing your own stuff sucks.
That's why whoever does the mixing never does the mastering. They just give it to someone else.
Yeah, it's like you pass it off to someone else who maybe hears something you didn't hear exactly, and you kind of get. It's also more fun. It's nice to like sit with someone else and be like, "Hey, what do you think?" And you're like, "Oh." Sometimes,
I would love to.
Sometimes you walk away and it's worse. That happens, but you know, hopefully it doesn't happen.
Well, it's like I just try and go with what I know of myself and like what I like.
Yeah. And
I'm just like, oh, you know, I'm a fan of like punchy low end. I'm a fan of like, you know, high end that cuts through and da-da-da. And then I try and like mix accordingly. And then I realize I go like way too far in those directions and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. That is part of it though. It's like you push it too far and then you're like, okay, that was too far. And then you pull it too less. And that was too not enough. And you kind of like massage it. And then you change that and then something else is off. It's all a big...
Oh, I hate that. Yeah. It's like the worst part. Like, it's exciting to like initially get it and then be like, let's put this plug-in on and this one and like figure out this, you know, like the saturation plug-in. And you know what? This could use a tiny reverb, but not this kind. Let's do small room. And like, that's exciting. And then you start realizing like once you put everything on, you get the sounds you want. And then at the end, you're like, why does the slap bass line cover everything up? Why is it? So then you fix that one. You're like, the slap sounds great. And then everything else sounds quiet.
Yeah.
Or like loud or something. And you're like, the fuck is, like, it's just, I don't know how you guys do it. It's a nightmare. I like doing it to a certain point and then I hate doing it after a while.
That's every bass player's dream, is to be the loudest instrument on the track because they're never prominent.
Yeah. Taylor Hawkins was always talking about, he always gets into it, Dave Grohl, because the Foo Fighters, because he always wants to bump the drums up. And he's like, Dave's a drummer, he'll bump it up. And then Dave was like, this is the Foo Fighters. When we're live, we have 3 guitars, 1 bass, and 1 drummer. Like, it's okay for the drums to be a little quieter than the guitars.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty holistic approach. Usually it's a fight between everyone's instruments.
I'm always, it's because everybody just wants to cut through.
Yeah, and it's also like you also know your parts better and you spend a lot of time on them. And, you know, especially with drums and bass, sometimes like less is more, you know? And so it's like, it's kind of boring to underplay, but underplaying usually is better for the record as a whole.
Mm-hmm. I definitely got into that more as like the older I got, the more I learned how to play less.
Yeah.
when it came to drums, and especially with bass too. But also, it's just also like my favorite songs all have killer bass lines and killer grooves. So I'm like,
Yeah.
fucking, it's just hard.
Yeah, just
But,
mixing the rhythm section alone is like if you nail that and then you start layering the other stuff on top,
yeah,
like it's almost like muting everything else. If you get that really locked in and then you start putting all the other stuff on top, you can really have like a strong foundation. But if the rhythm section's off, whether it was played that way or mixed that way, it's hard to recover.
oh, 100%. And then just the frequencies, like trying to get the bass to like, oh, do I want the bass to be the low, or do I want it to be more mids? I want the kick drum to be the low, and it's just like dealing with that shit is like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because they all sound great on their own, and then
Right. Yeah, that bass, especially with live instruments, that bass drum to bass guitar is very tricky.
yeah. But it's like you said, if you can nail that down, guitars and vocals, everything is easy on top of it.
Yeah, totally. I spent so much time like recording drums, and the rhythm section was usually my job to edit that together and like tighten up the drums. And then,
Mm.
this was right when Pro Tools first came out with the Beat Detective, where you could
Oh, right, yeah,
chop up all the drums and like lock it to the grid. And then that
yeah,
kind of also, in a way, made it too tight and too calculated.
yeah.
And then you had to like offset it and then change it, and then you'd lose symbols. It was a whole thing to
I,
deal with.
I hate things like Beat Detective. I can't. I'll quantize a little bit
Yeah.
because it's like but I always use a very low like percentage,
Yeah.
or whatever standard. I kind of use that and then work my way back
Right.
because I'm good to have a little bit of feel to like a little. If you're John Bonham, you don't play ahead of the beat. You're constantly like this far behind the beat, but it like that's what makes the Led Zeppelin sound what it is. So
Yeah. I can't believe those Led Zeppelin records were recorded in like a week or two, like the whole album in a week or two, or whatever it was. Like, it's
yeah,
so like powerful and sounds so good. You're just like, what did you guys do?
yeah, and they don't do like a whole lot of layering
Yeah.
either. So it's like these big epic sounds, but the sounds aren't coming from layering. They're coming from the actual just musicians playing.
Yeah. And like getting it right the first time with great gear and great, engineering.
Yeah.
And that's an art.
Meanwhile, I'm sitting here like, all right, I got the drums, got the bass, got the rhythm guitar. I'll add an acoustic part here. Let's do a slide part here, and then let's do volume swells here.
Yeah. But your main thing is now comedy, like you're a comedian, and the music is kind of like the passion project. Is that fair to say?
That's kind of what it is now. Right now, what I'm trying to do is make. Okay, I have this whole plan because everybody with quarantine, all of us comics and entertainers are trying to find online outlets.
Yeah.
Like when I saw Thomas Pridgeon putting out like drum lessons online, I was like, oh, this is sad because that's a guy who played with the Mars Volta and every other amazing band. He's like the most killer drummer, and he's like, we need to give lessons online.
Yeah.
So I was
or
like,
maybe they enjoy it too. It's like I enjoy teaching.
no, I do too. I actually taught for a lot of my life, but music and just other things. But
Yeah.
uh,
It's definitely less of a rock star thing to be like, and here's my, course.
oh yeah, yeah. There's no commercial. It's like Axel, fucking Slash is like, take lessons from me.
Yeah.
With like cool graphics coming across. Like,
Is that real?
No, that's what I'm saying. Like that's like that's funny if someone tried to make them offering lessons rock starish.
Yeah.
It's like fireworks and shit, and it's like $20 an hour.
Yeah.
I can teach you how to do this.
First you go to KFC, then you get the chicken bucket, and then you put it on your head, and then you learn how to play.
That's how you do it. Then you got to draw a face on it.
Yeah.
But no, I my whole thing right now is I'm trying to like record backlog like 5 to 10 drum covers on my electronic kit, which makes it easy when it's electronic kit, and do it with like different like old like songs we grew up with that are like pop songs, like Alanis Morissette, and just like normal ass pop songs, No Doubt or something. But do this. I want to call my character Samurai Tiptoe, the tasteful over drummer, and it's like so I just like do what I would write as drum parts to these songs.
Yeah.
And I always tend to write an epic, like still simple, stay true to the song, but I tend to write with these epic builds and swells, and then occasionally a fill, and then take a fill that I do in that song, and like put it at the end of the video online, like a tutorial after I finish the cover, like fade to a tutorial of me telling someone how to, this rudiment at 2:05 at 2 minutes and 5 seconds. It's called a Swiss Army triplet, and as you can see, this is how I use it. Let me show you, break it down, blah blah blah, and then do live stream lessons on Patreon like once a week, where literally people can just chat and comment in, and then for like an hour and a half, whatever, I'll just like be on video live and show them, like answer their questions and show them what the rudiments to do. So like maybe I can get a little income going that way. Seems like a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds exciting, and you seem to know what you're talking about. And drumming is always something you can. It's like a limitless pursuit. There's always something more to learn or different tricks, and it's the hardest part of recording always, to get the good drum sound.
Yeah, and I mean with this it's a little easier just because it's like the drum sound is you just program. You're like,
it's like V drums.
Let's boost the treble, 4,000 hertz on the kick drum so we can get some attack. Let's do this down, but it's not. I just have a terrible ear for it sometimes. So like I'm trying to do a Papa Roach cover right now of Last Resort. And of course, I wrote a part that was way too hard for me, so now I'm like struggling to even do it. That's another thing I do that's like a theme of my life in show business. I think is like trying to do, or life in general, trying to do stuff that's too hard for me, like that I can do, but just like I'll be mad when I was living with my parents and when I was younger. I'd be like learning guitar. And I'd be like mad that I couldn't do this John Mayer lick because my head knows what to do, but it's like I'm trying to fucking. And my dad's like, you just learned guitar a month ago. Like, what are you so mad about? I'm like, I can do it. Shut up.
Yeah. Well, stretch goals. I mean, if you just do what you can do, you don't grow. But John Mayer has like these huge hands too. He's he's like 7'8". He just rocks that guitar.
Yeah. But I think the whole point is like all these people out there, they're like, you got to push yourself to your limit, and all these athletes, I didn't get to where I am today by just, I had to push myself every day. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, but there is a point where if you're too much of a perfectionist and you're going to damage your chances in whatever you're trying to do. So it's like, I shouldn't be sitting there trying to fuck with John Mayer licks when I'm a month in. I should just be like playing chords to a metronome. Like get your timing, get your rhythm, get your feel of just simple shit first. Then you can worry about sticking those licks in later. And I should have known that because like doing drums is the same way. I got good at drums because I took it kind of slow at first. I'm like, it's a paradiddle. I'm going to go right, left, right, left for like a month. And then after a while, it became like, now it's not a problem.
Well, it's like music is a lot of foundation, boring stuff. And if you skip that foundation, which to be quite honest, I don't have a lot of foundation, and I think I would have been a lot better at music if I had more of a foundation. Like I played viola, I can read music, but a lot of it is just like kind of having the ear for it. And I never developed the ability to like play in a lot of stuff. Like I could program and I would just rewind it and like add maybe the left hand on top of the right hand and stuff like that. But if I had a stronger foundation, I think there would have been other things I could have done in music.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I know exactly that feeling because even today there's things on drums that I'm like, I should know how to do this by now, but I went too fast.
Yeah.
I learned it too quickly, and now like, everything I'm doing is starting to sound the same. But again, it could all be in my head too, because everyone else will listen to it and be like, yo, that sounds dope. And I'm like, it's garbage. And they're like, all right, I don't know what you're talking about, but.
I've literally never listened again to anything that's ever been finished. Like anytime something's mastered and done and released, I've never listened to it again. Like I can't listen to it.
Really?
Yeah. I've never like pulled it up to check it unless it was like I wanted to A/B like a mix or something. But like I'm just so done with it. I've listened to it so many times and like, unless it was on the radio. When it was on the radio, that was cool.
Right, of course. Well, you have to listen to it if it's on the radio.
Yeah. And then the radio does that like cool radio compression, and it kind of makes it like exciting. Like they compress the shit out of the records on the radio.
Yeah, I don't like that though.
No?
That's always bugged me. It's like, again, we can go back to Zeppelin. It's like they didn't over compress everything like they do now. And it's like, I mean, that's part of the reason why I just fell out of music and sort of into comedy is because I was just like, I was done with the way the industry was headed. I think 99% of the music out there is just trash. And that's not from a, like, oh, I'm getting old, I'm in my 30s perspective. And it's like, that's just being like every song is this now. There's no this. It's either this with an occasional drop it out and then like back to this again. Like in dubstep or EDM when it's like drop the beat just because.
Right.
For 4 fucking measures.
You gotta drop it so you can bring it back.
Do what?
You gotta drop it so you can bring it back.
Yeah,
drop
I know,
the beat,
right?
Bring it back.
It's so music is really reflective of culture now.
Yeah.
Like everything is all about the extremes now. There used to be in music and in everything in life, there used to be like appreciation for subtleties in any kind of art or anything in life. Now it's like, dude, trying to carry on a conversation with a Gen Z person is like, you're like, dude, nothing excites this person. They've seen titties from the moment they were like on a phone when they were 2. You know what I mean? Like nothing excites this person. They watch videos of people getting murdered are accessible to them. While 2 years old, it's like, and I'm sitting here telling a funny, legitimate story about like, meeting someone and just like a funny little, like a Seinfeldian thing that happened. That's like, oh, this is funny. And they're just like, whatever, dad,
Yeah, it's like they're just, everything is, I mean, even that Sicko Mode Travis Scott song, it's like 5 different beats or something. Is a beat for like 8 bars, and there's a new beat, and then Drake comes in, and then there's a new beat, and then if you look at the writing credits, there's like 45 writers on that song.
It's just distracting to me.
Yeah. I mean, and I like the song. It's hype, but it's like the attention span, and even like I think I was watching some live stream, or maybe it was an Instagram. It was Jermaine Dupri, and he was like playing like 8 bars of he's like, this is how the kids want it now, and he's like playing like 8 bars of each song, and then like switching, like when he's DJing, like they're just like 15 seconds, and like
that was a bit that I haven't done this bit in years. There's a bit I did a lot of music bits when I was starting comedy because that's all I really knew about performing was music. I've since removed a lot of them because they were hacky. But there's one that I'm like, I still want to do it, but it's a very like, not impression, but sound effect based bit. And those, sometimes if that's not part of your act, it's just like a weird thing that comes out of nowhere. But I love the bit. And it's basically, and the concept of it is like, I hate DJs because I don't think any of them are talented. Because I think when you, I mean, except the ones that do their original shit, but I'm talking about like club DJs. It's like, everybody had a bit about it back in the day about how club DJs, but my bit was like, it's 15 seconds of each song over and over, like just different songs, and not even same genre, like crossing weird genres, but just sticking the same beat to it.
Yeah.
And the tempo, and I'm like, does that work for any of your other senses? Like your other 4 senses, like to just remove shit 15 seconds in for new shit? Like if I was eating a hamburger and I always point to the guy in the front row and I'm like, this guy's eating a hamburger, and I'm like, oh yeah, you're enjoying that, sir? And I was like, yeah, and then I just wait 15 seconds and go, sushi. Yeah, sushi. That's what's next. 15 seconds of that. It was like, oh, you smell the Glade plug-in. It smells nice, right? 15 seconds. Here's a fart. Take that. That's 15 seconds. And then I think for touch, I used like, oh, he's grabbing someone's titty. And then 15 seconds later, it's like, ow, a sea urchin. How did a tit turn into a sea urchin?
Yeah, that's
Those
funny.
are the rules.
Yeah.
That's what's popular now.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It is a lot of, yes, you're right, sensory overload. And I agree, like the music bits are hard to like, I've tried so many. I've probably tried like 10 to 30 different music bits, and only like 1 or 2 have really stayed in the act. They're just like, sometimes I get way too esoteric about things that I think are funny, or like stories that happened in the studio, and I'm like, this is too specific. Like people don't know.
It's funny. That's one of the dangers of being too close to a bit. You should be close to your bits, I think, unless you're like a purely Stephen Wright one-liner or an observational comic like Jerry Seinfeld. But even then, it's like you should still be close to your bit. But there is such a thing as being too far into, because you still work in music. You still do music. That's still like a career thing for you. So like I wrote jokes about working with adults with disabilities like autism and Down syndrome and things, and which is a touchy subject. But my whole perspective is like I took care of them. Like I was their life coach. I was their behavior interventionist. Like I got to know them. But when I was working in it, the bits weren't working, and I was like, and now that I quit, because I was going to do comedy full time until thanks a lot COVID, but. I quit and I was doing comedy full time for a minute and working at the store, and the bits started working. And I was like, I told Brian Simpson about it.
He's super funny.
Yeah, I came up with him in San Diego.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
It was like started. We started at the same time in San Diego, and he just went. But he told me, he was like, "You're too close to it, man. You're too close to it." And I was like, "Too close to what?" He was just like, "The job. Like you still did it. That's why it ain't funny." Like you still work with kids, so you got this raw thing, and it's like you gotta be raw, but you gotta be separated enough from the bits. So it's like when you're doing music bits, people, it's like, oh, it's not as funny unless they're in your head, and no one's in your head.
Yeah. And there's an element of like you're still in it, and you can't really be 100% objective, or you haven't had enough distance from it yet to really.
The joke still needs to be the joke, but when you're still in it, it comes off as still a part of your real life.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, but once you're not in it anymore, you can focus on just the jokey aspects of it that make it funny.
Right. And I find when I actually remove like the parts like, whenever I add, like I used to work with the music and I add it into the joke, that to me, it doesn't work as well. When I just talk about it in general, like my observational music stuff works a lot better than like I used to work. Whenever I preface that or tell that part of it, I kind of like, I can feel like there's a disconnect.
Wow, that's interesting. I didn't think about it that way, because I still feel like a lot of the bits I would do that worked with music stuff was still like, were still personal to me, but like I think maybe with your situation, it's just that you spend too much time maybe just like talking about things that they would only understand if they were working in those rooms with you.
Potentially. I think it's also, here's like, basically every bit I had that had an element of like, I used to work with X artist. Whenever I took that out, the bit worked better. And like adding me working like with them, never like people, it's like, wait a minute, he's a comedian. It's like I could see them like thinking about like, wait, he's a comedian, what he used to do. Like when I just talk about it.
Did the actual funny part of the bit itself have, like, not the setup of it, have to do with you working there specifically?
Not really. So it was just like these moments I would like kind of mention to make it more connected to myself, but it also never really advanced it. So I just pulled it out and made it more general. More relatable. Yeah. It's like, so we're both talking about it now as listeners and not as like me kind of like telling you how it is, so to speak.
I used to like, I had this bit that I dusted off after like 3-4 years of not doing it. And I've been doing it the past month now, but I found out different ways to make it work. But the whole thing was about music and how much Creed sucks. And it's like, that's something that's so particular that when I was doing it earlier, it wasn't hitting the way I wanted it to, because I was just talking about how much Creed sucks from like a musical perspective. And like, we would make fun of it with the band I was in. We would just make fun of Creed, whatever. But then I turned it into a thing about parents, about being a parent, because I started finding out that when people became parents, they liked Creed more. And I just thought that was a really funny observation. So the way I started doing the setup now was, instead of being like, I'm in a band and this and that, and I hate people that like Creed and this and that. I started the bit by going like, just because you're a parent out there doesn't mean that your newfound perspective on life is better. Now your awful decisions just affect 2 people.
Right.
That's like what's going on. And now it becomes this parent and a relatable thing. And then I go talk about how I was talking to a guy who likes music, and we were vibing, because he was like, I like Alice in Chains, Zeppelin, Pearl Jam, Nirvana. I'm like, oh my God, those are my favorites. Like, we're gonna get along. And he was like, yeah. And Arms Wide Open by Creed is one of my favorite songs. And then I was like, we can't be friends anymore.
Right.
He's like, you won't understand until you have kids. And the first punchline is, then I decided in that moment, I'm never fucking having kids.
Yeah.
That's the most effective form of birth control I've ever heard.
But that does work better than like bringing up the like your perspective in music.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Speaking of the parenting stuff, like you wrote for LOL Parenting?
Yeah, it's like a series. I don't know if you saw it. It's like I wrote one episode of it, and then I punched up a lot of their dialogue. And
that's pretty good as a non-parent.
Yeah, I think it's just. Well, here's the thing. I'm an only child, and
Okay.
I think it's a double-edged sword. Some people like Stephen Fury learned how to because he's an only child, but he's learned how to navigate the world so well. And I never did. I think a lot of only children are like me, and instead they shrink into these areas that they just feel comfortable in, and then they end up like having I have huge gaps in knowledge of just life in general that sometimes are embarrassing that I don't like things I don't know.
Like what?
I once got in, because I always joke when you have siblings, they're there to just like, they're there to kick your ass and love you, but they're also there to like set you straight. I think, was it Bill Burr or Louis C.K. Someone said like having siblings is like a trial run for life. Like that asshole you meet in real life in your 30s, you're used to dealing with it because that was your older brother picking on you when you were 7. So it's like you learned early on. Whereas for me, it's like I don't want to learn how to deal with that asshole in my 30s as an only child because I've never had that. So this is the first time I'm dealing with that type of asshole in my 30s. And so like little things, like I remember in middle school, I came home, I was damn near crying once because I didn't think anything of it. I was sitting there, and it's everybody's hitting puberty, right? It's middle school. People are starting to hit puberty. Some people earlier than others. It's a weird time, right? High school is even weirder too because some people are still coming down. Some people haven't started it. But it was like later in middle school. I think it was in 8th grade or something. I don't even remember. I was just in my German class. And I remember that she was trying to teach German words, and she said something about like, okay, so who in here? She was trying to find an example of something that everybody did. She was like, example of something no one did. She was like, in German, whatever, and no one raised their hand. And she goes, all right, and who in here wears deodorant? Expecting everyone to raise their hand. And everyone raised their hand except for me. And I just went like this, and I was like, oh, that's weird. And then everybody turned and like looked at me. And like I just didn't know it was a weird thing to not wear deodorant when you're going through puberty. And like it scarred me it was like traumatic for a minute because everyone just like literally pointed and started laughing at me. And it was like a fucking high school, like you know in the film when they do it in slow-mo. Yeah. Oh, and the kid's like his life is ruined. That's what happened. And my German teacher looks at me and she goes,
9.
Maybe just lie next time. Yeah. And I was like, but she wasn't on my side. Like she didn't go, everybody, don't make fun of Isaac. She was like, you should probably just lie next time. Like in the middle of the class. And I ran home and I was just, I remember threw my backpack down. My dad was like, what's wrong? And I was like, let's go get deodorant. Let's get deodorant right now.
Yeah. Well, you could be a parent. It could be like a parent thing too. Your parent never.
Yeah, but as a parent, you don't. When I say like it's a trial run for life, you have to be you have to be on an equal footing in a certain way, like hierarchy wise. Like your older brother's stronger than you, your younger sister might be manipulative than you, but you're all on this equal playing field. It's just your parents are this next level of like they're like the gods of Olympus, observing the commoners, observing Hercules and all the other dudes. But you got Zeus and like your parents are like Zeus and Athena, and they're just looking down at you, and you're just trying to fight amongst yourselves to figure out. So yeah, that's being an only child. Though what that allows you to do, here's the other edge of that sword, is observing things in a way that other people don't. So it's like, oh, I don't have kids, and I'm an only child. But I could write for LOL Parenting because I'm like, I've seen the different dynamics of parents. Like when you're an only child, you just sit like your parents go like, wait here, I'm going to go to do whatever. And instead of like going with your brother, you stop it. No, you stop it. Like instead of just fucking around internally, like maybe I'm waiting in the car and I'm just watching an entire family argue for like 5 while my parents are. And I'm just watching like, oh, that's how that kid, oh, they're not even seeing that their kid is putting his hand in the tailpipe right now.
Yeah.
Like their arguing is so bad that they're not even focused on the one thing they love, which is their kid together that they love. Because they're arguing about their mom or something, like the mother-in-law argument. And it's like, as an only child, you're like, oh, you have a lot of moments like that where you just look. But
it's similar, like I'm the oldest, so like I didn't have anyone to tell me. I feel like I had to discover deodorant on my own, which is also, I don't know if you have a bit about deodorant, but that's funny. There's something in there to turn
I
that
just
into.
realized it as I was telling you, like,
You're like that there's a good story in there with your not your German and deodorant, but um, I don't know if I mean for me being an only like the oldest, it's kind of there's a lot of only child moments in there too because like
yeah,
you're kind of like the first one to do everything, the first one to do a sleepover, the first one to like kind of like go through things with your parents. And even me, like I have two kids, and like the first one you're like kind of like scared about everything, and the second one you're like, ah, he'll be fine, you know.
right, right. Like that's what I don't know if you watch Comedians in Cars, but Dave Chappelle talks about being the youngest. He's like, I think, and he says, I think a lot of the youngest siblings are the ones that become comedians. Like it's never the oldest or the middle as much. And I've noticed that too, actually. Most of the comedians I know that have siblings are the youngest. And it's like, and he goes, and I think it's because the parents just phone it in and they're like, figure life out on your own. And when you do that, you eventually become a comedian because you only can look in at life through your perspective.
Yeah. Unless your parents phoned it in for all the kids, which also happens.
But then when that happens, like my girlfriend, like that's what kind of her life was like. She got really close with her brothers,
right?
And they took each other. They like, they fought a lot and what, but they still love each other. And they, there's some beef that goes on sometimes, but they are always there for each other because their parents weren't as much.
Right, right.
So there's still, see what I'm saying? There's still, when you have siblings, even if you're the oldest, like you just, once you have your younger siblings, it's the dynamic is changed now.
Right.
How it works. With me, it's just like I'm constantly alone. I'm constantly waiting for like the next person. There's no one there. My parents wanted to have a kid, like a kid. As they put it, they wanted to give me a sibling, but they couldn't do it. So I just ended up being an only child. And they're super doting. Like I have a classic Chinese tiger mom in a lot of ways. She's toned out a lot over the past couple decades. But like, man, we got in shouting matches all the time. And my dad would just have to be like mediate it. Just like, why did I have to get involved with another ethnicity?
But you seem you're very outgoing. You seem to have like a lot of friends, you get along with everybody, which is, you must have picked up a lot of different things just through your life in terms of like making friends and getting along with people, even though you didn't have siblings. So even like to me is like, when you see like, oh, that's an only child, I didn't get that vibe from you. It's been like, oh, this guy's the only child.
Oh, wait till you get to know me a little more. You'll totally understand. Because again, I know you're not supposed to compare yourself to other people in this industry. Like that's the death knell.
Yeah.
But I'm Chinese, so there's this Asian guilt thing where you're just constantly comparing yourself to other people. It sucks. I've been working on it. I've been getting better therapy.
Especially in this town, you're always like, oh, that guy's on the billboard. This guy just did that. Yeah.
But I look at guys. Okay, so it's weird that I always compare myself to this guy because he doesn't even know it. But Stephen Fury, I brought him up earlier. He's an only child. He's an only child, and his whole life, it seems like, I talked to people who knew him in Sacramento. They were like, he's always got the baddest bitch. Like he always knew how to get the baddest bitches, and it's everything for him seems effortless. Everything, and he gets. I joked that his whole career has been an unbroken boulevard of green lights.
Yeah, yeah.
Like even when he bombs, he's still booking.
That's what Alec Baldwin says to Seinfeld in Comedians in Cars.
I completely stole that because that fits Fury very much. And I feel like I am an only child who's a little bit older than him.
Yeah, I'm having Fury on the pod next.
Oh, really?
No, now I am. He doesn't know it, but
yeah. Oh, he doesn't know any of the stuff I'm saying about him because, like, I think now I'm just like happier and more content with life, so I'm a little bit easier to be vulnerable without feeling like I'm fucking gonna die.
Yeah.
But now it's more interesting. It used to fuck me up to just hang with him.
Yeah.
But now it's like I just go, oh, there's just a difference between the way we handled being only children. I think that's a lot of it because a lot of this stuff is similar. But he knew, like you said, I don't seem like it. But it's like when you really start talking to me, a lot of times I get awkward in a situation I don't know. I either get more awkward as like a conversation goes, or I thrive more. It just depends on what it is. He's a guy who goes and everybody loves him.
Yeah.
Comics love him. Audiences, like people just love him. And comics don't really like me. I don't know what it is. Like the comics that I like don't really like me back often. But I think a lot of that comes down to the way I handled being an only child was like say and do whatever to fit in. Say and do whatever to fit in with the outcasts because I outcast too. But in principle, that makes you a fucking conformist, even though you're trying to fit in with outcasts. You see the paradox?
Yeah. Well, it's like that. It's kind of like dating in a way. It's like when the more you strive for their approval in a way, the less they kind of want you. It's like, and you kind of push away more. They kind of want you more.
And Fury gives off zero desperation vibes.
No. Don't be boring. Don't be desperate. The 2 rules of LA. We always talk about it.
And I feel like I'm those 2 things to a lot of people that are comics. And even if they've never seen my act, I think they feel that. But like you said, I still come off always as outgoing and, loquacious.
Confident. And you seem very confident, very high confidence.
But not in a way that, it's hard to explain because you're getting me on like a roll here because there's a way to be confident as a comedian that you have to admit is different than normal everyday confidence.
Yeah.
I think I have normal everyday confidence, but that does not play well. Think about this. When you're talking to a group of comics and you're all just kind of riffing.
Yeah.
And you're just like, hey, someone, you say something, someone tags it, everybody else laughs, this person picks up on a tangent, you die laughing over here, people start making fun of your laugh or whatever, and then you're like, oh, you shit on that, and then it becomes there's this like thing that makes everyone happy to be around each other. And then picture this, it's 5 people doing that, and then one guy who's not a comic comes in, just starts patting everyone on the back and just go like, hey guys, what the fuck are we all talking about?
Yeah.
You're like, that guy sucks. I hate that guy already. But that guy who comes into a barbecue of just normal people and they're flipping burgers like, fucking weather, huh? And the guy comes in, hey, what are you fuckers doing? And they're like, hey, Bobby's here.
Yeah.
Now that's awesome. So I feel like sometimes I'm that guy because I'm so used to, again, trying to fit in anywhere when I was a kid. I'd be like, okay, just be confident and be loud and be heard. And just be nice and cool about it. And I was that guy for a while, like, hey, what the fuck's going on in here, huh?
Yeah.
And I'm like, comics hate that vibe. And that's not really who I am. Inside, I'm more just like let people talk. And if I can think of something funny to say, I might try and fit it in there.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm at a little bit of a crossroads at 33. Terrible age to be at a crossroads.
But we have this, like, weird group of friends. Not that they're weird, but like this social situation is different because we're kind of like lightly friends with a lot of people.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like, we're kind of like, and so it takes time. And I always find this, I'm like, there's some people I'm like, I just know we're not going to go to the next level. Like we're friends at this. And I can tell, like, even if I hang out with you more, like we're not, for whatever reason, we're just not progressing down. Yeah. We still like each other, but we're just not going to the next level.
Yeah, if we hang out more, it'll probably detrimentally affect our relationship.
Me and you? No, I don't think so.
No, I'm just saying, like, that's the way you're talking about when you have a certain level.
Oh, I don't even mean detrimentally. It's just like it's more like a wall. I just keep bumping against this wall with you, and that's fine. We're just at this level, and that's fine. And that's a weird thing because you keep seeing these people over and over, and sometimes the relationship doesn't get more in depth. You know what I mean? Like you don't. Right. But you're still around them all the time. Like you're on the same shows, you say hi to them, but you just never, and then you see them with other people that you're really good friends with and they become really good friends. And you're like, okay, well, we're just not there. It's not going to click.
How does it not work that we're all three? It's like when your parents try to make you be friends with like their friends' kids.
Yeah.
And you're just like, hey, he eats sand. Like he's fucking weird. I don't want to talk to Timmy.
Yeah.
Fucking just threw his feces at a cat. I'm trying to have my fucking Cheerios over here.
Yeah. It's also okay. It's like if sometimes it would bother me, I'm like, I guess we're not going to be good friends. But then it's also like it's good to have like a wide variety. I'm like, all right, with this person, we're going to become closer friends, and we'll hang out more outside of comedy or whatever. And some will just be like more of a hey, what's up, friend, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know. Sometimes it's also when you meet people who are like way ahead of you in comedy or these things, it's like that building friends with that kind of like difference in, I guess, like power or like comedy is also interesting too. It's like when you become...
I'm terrible. That's the part I'm terrible with. I think I rubbed a couple paid regulars at the Comedy Store the wrong way at first. I think they find me okay now, but it's like starting from below the bottom again. When you make that first impression, it's not good. Because I was like trying to get road work. I mean, like honestly, when I moved to LA from San Diego, I had like 10 really good minutes and like 20 decent okay minutes. And because I spent 4 years there, 2 mics a night, whatever shitty bar shows I could do, just pounding together material because that's all I wanted to do. And now everything's internet, social media, and all this stuff. Everything's changed, TikTok, all that. And But when I moved up here 4 years ago, so I've been doing this 8 years now, it was like I couldn't get anyone to notice. Like I was still building material. When I do like C clubs, I'll do an hour headlining on the road. If I do B clubs, I'll feature. I'll do like half an hour. I'll do different sets every night. Like I've pounded together a lot of material, but I never got anyone at the Comedy Store to like notice. And I think my problem is I think the default is desperation. Like just the tone. I don't even try, even when I'm not desperate. I feel like it comes off that way because I don't know. Again, now it's the logistics thing. Now it's a thing that Fury learned that I didn't learn, which is like, this is just how you have to carry yourself and talk to people. And they'll never, like, he lets so many things come to him and it works for him. Never worked for me, so I have to go get things. But when I go get things, and he does it, hustles hard too. That's not to take away. Like, I know he hustles like probably twice as hard as me at least, but like, and I fucking do whatever I can. I can do a lot as far as just attempting to further myself. But yeah, I don't know. It's just a vibe. I think it's a vibe I give off that's just like, I know that I could be a successful feature or opener for Bobby Lee, Adam Ray, any of these people. And I've been around them, and a lot of them, some of them have not a lot, but some of them have seen me, like, have good sets at the Comedy Store. Even Chris Spencer came up to me once. He was like, yo, that shit was, like, when I first got hired, he's like, this is some funny shit, man.
Yeah.
And
that always feels great when someone above you gives you, like, a dope, oh, that was funny.
Yeah. But that dynamic is something I haven't figured out yet, how to talk to those people.
Yeah, it's also a microcosm of what it was before. It's like sometimes you're just like, it's just not going to be, you're not going to integrate with that one person who maybe you want to feature for, but maybe they already have, like, there's a lot of different like moving parts at play. And, you know, sometimes you just got to be like, all right, this is what it is. And the fact that because you want it, you in your head, right? You're chasing it. It's right. Like for people who you seem like a scholastic guy, like you went to school for neuroscience. It's like, we're doing the assignment, do the assignment, get the rewards. It's like, it's much more like not A plus B equals C. It's like be A and then hang out with F and then come back to D. Like it's very like non-linear.
For no reason in 3 weeks, but that's when D is going to F is yelling at you, and D hates F too, so D is going to take you on the road. Like, it's the moving parts thing I'm not good at. I like static things. Like, the fact that I'm even trying to be a musician or comedian that ever happened, my parents are just like, how? Like, ever since we've known you, you've been like, once you have structure, you're good, and you're content. And I'm like, I don't know, I just feel like if I had a 9 to 5 now, I'd blow my brains out. I don't want that in my life. I want some more. Yeah. And I'm willing to sacrifice it. So it's hard. My Asian mom is just like, we got into a huge argument the other day when she came to visit, and I was like, I got a random ass, like, pretty big self-tape audition. So I was like, Mom, I'm letting you crash with me, which is a mistake. Don't ever let your parents stay with you when they come to visit. Yeah, it's like
my parents never do.
I don't know why.
On their own choice. They have their own reasons. Yeah.
They're smart. And my mom's smart too, but just not in certain social cues and instances. Yeah. And she was like, I'll stay with you. And I'm like, I'm not going to say no to my mom. You know, she's done everything for me. So, like, whatever. So I let her sleep on my bed. I'm sleeping on the air mattress. My place is tiny. It's all our places are tiny. And we got in a huge argument because I needed her help to do this self-tape. No one could read the lines with me. I'm like, it's not that hard, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if it's because she's foreign and it's just harder language for her, but she just managed to fuck everything up at the beginning of doing it. And it was just like, how hard is it to stand to the left of a phone and say lines? And she's like, I don't even want to be doing this. Like, it blew up to the point where it was like, if I shouldn't have listened to your dad and let you, like, pursue your dreams.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of underlying stuff here, yeah.
Like, oh, here it comes. So it's like, yeah. She's supportive, though. That's a weird thing. Yeah. That's why I think my mom, as an existing woman, is just, as like a person, is just funny because she is so supportive of what I do and hates that I do it. And I'm like, that's the sign of a true parent.
But I did see you in a commercial that was on your website where you're in an airline, and you were great in it. You were like talking to the social media chick, and then some guy passes out and sleeps.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, I'm now getting a lot more callbacks and like unavails for a lot more commercials. I'm not booking because they don't want to book half breeds. Being diverse is not a.
Do people know enough about Asians to be like, oh, he's a half, that's no good? Because honestly, I can't tell.
It's not even about knowing enough. It's the look.
Okay.
When you look, you don't think like, I want to use this guy to market towards Asians.
Mm-hmm.
There was a guy that would go into the same auditions with me all the time. And I would, before COVID, we were all doing live auditions. And he looked like, I had long hair down to here at the time, straight long hair. And I was like, oh, this is a unique look. And every time I would see this Asian kid walking in, it was like, he looked just like a more Asian version of me. Same long ass hair, wavy, silky, not wavy, silky, just straight hair. But just like slantier eyes, flatter face, flatter nose, shorter, darker. I was like, and he booked every time I was there, I'm like, I'd throw the script, I'd be like, I'm not getting this part. If they're going to want an Asian dude, they're going to want that guy.
It's like in La La Land when Emma Stone goes to the audition and there's like 50 other girls with red hair dressed exactly the same in the lineup with her.
But it's even worse than that because she's just one of them.
Yeah.
I'm like half of one of them and then half of something they don't even want. So I'm really on the end of that. I won't get this. So when I got the, like I was telling you before, when I got that American Airlines commercial, they loved me. And again, this goes back to being like only child thing. So there's two things here that I think are important. One is I booked it straight off of like improvisation. Like I read their lines and they were like, okay, now riff. Just like to whatever you can think of, just do it. Free form, open. And I made them laugh in the room. It wasn't a thing at that point. It was just like me being funny. And they were like, okay, we don't want you for this part. I was supposed to be the sleeping black dude who was... it's a weird that I'll never say that sentence ever again. I was supposed to be the sleeping black dude.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be quite the talent if you pulled that off.
Yeah. But no, I was supposed to be that character, and they were like, look, man, you killed it, but we just wanted someone else for this character, but can you do a different character? We have another one in mind. And it ended up sort of just being like this weirdly kind of stonery guy in a hoodie, but the being an only child thing that came into that I think helped was like the observing thing, trying to fit in everywhere.
Yeah.
They told me that working with me, the two directors and then the American Airlines people, they gave me an ovation when I came out of the plane. Like everyone else was leaving, they were like, thank you. And when I came out, I was like, oh, hey. And they were just like, dude, you were fucking great. The creative director came over and like talked to me. And I was just like, oh, this is like one of the best days ever. I could easily do commercials for a living if this was a thing. Even though I don't want to, like that's not necessarily the end goal, but like, oh, it's just, I was easy to work with because again, growing up, having observed how you're supposed to just fit in the circumstances, I was like, oh, talk to this person this way. Don't talk to this person that way.
Yeah.
Talk to this person. And it became stuff that seems intuitive isn't necessarily intuitive in the moment once you get in there. And so it's just like, I knew the two things the directors said, the one thing that those two directors said to me, like a lot during the thing, they were just like, you take direction very well.
Yeah. Comedians usually do. They're like, because they're used to reading a room and like doing what it takes to be funny.
Yeah. A lot of the other actors, they weren't comedians.
Right.
They were actors and they had to get a lot more direction than me because it was, even though what they're designed to do is not do that. Is not a lot of direction, just play. But for me, it was just a thing of like, oh, I know the vibe they're going for. I know what they want. So it's like, I'm not going to try a bunch of shit. I'm just going to stay in that.
You made a choice. A strong choice. Yeah.
But I had to do like half the takes. Maybe that's why they were so happy for me with working with me. It was short. That you know those shoots, they never end on time. Never. They're always super late. You're like, it's going to be an 8-hour day, and then it's 12 hours, right? Even on big budget shows, I was like a featured extra on Westworld for like a week on the second season, and that's the highest budget HBO show at the time. No, higher than Game of Thrones. And I just remember like, oh, these days always took way longer than they were supposed to.
That's why they needed the budget. Yeah. Yeah,
exactly. But the commercial I did ended exactly on time. And the American Airlines people, the clients were like, this never happens when we do commercials. This is great. And the directors were like, this never happens when we do commercials. And so I think the fact that I took half as many takes as everyone else to get what they wanted. Because it was just like, at one point I was doing takes and they were like a little less, a little more subtle. So I brought it real low. And then I finally looked and I just go, you just kind of want like a stoner guy, right? And they were like, I mean, yeah, pretty much. And I go, I got you. Yeah. And then they did the action and I just sort of did the takes that you saw. And they were like, fucking perfect.
Yeah. No, it was really good. Like, do you think it was part of your Leslie Kahn training of like Because I took that class as well, and one thing I took away from it was like when you're taking notes, just be like, cool, yeah, I love that note, and then just do it.
Oh yeah, there's definitely that. The only time you should ever have like a dialogue, a true dialogue or a question, is only when you don't really understand even the vibe or the aura. Because what if I was just like, it was a good thing I go like, it's not I feel like I'm making this a big deal compared to what it really was. It's just a commercial that paid $1,000, whatever. But it was like not even a big one. But I remember like if I would have looked at the director and then been like, wait, so you just want me to do it like a tired guy or like or like, do you just want me to be sleepy? It's not as like good as being like, do you want me? So I'm sort of like a stoner guy here on a plane.
Yeah, one is
like,
more argumentative and one's more like making, because he's an artist too. So he or she, they're making them feel good about their choice. It's like, you want to, that happens in music a lot too. It's like a producer or a label will get super excited about a bad idea, and you got to like kind of like make them feel okay about their bad idea. So, because like typically they're not as close to the music, or maybe they're just not as cool or whatever. But you don't want to like, make them feel weird. You got to be, oh, that sounds, and then you got to like kind of then you got to figure out how to get out of it later or whatever. But like being a good team member is part of it.
You wouldn't have the end of Layla if you didn't have that.
Is that what happened? Like Eric Clapton?
Yeah, you ever heard the story about the end
I haven't.
Of, I think it's Layla, right? Because Layla is the one that's like, and then, but the ending is that piano, that really gorgeous piano, just outro.
Mm-hmm.
Remember how it's just a sudden change, where it's like,
I have to go listen to it again, but I trust.
The whole song is talking. It's Layla, you got me on my knees, and then at the end is. Like, and it's just like this really like Kenny G ballady like outro, and it comes out of nowhere. Like Layla, literally the rock kind of fades out and then jumps into this, and the way that it was, and it's been argued for decades now about whether it's the shittiest outro ever or the best outro ever. Like, it's like a huge thing in music now, because what happened was the drummer came in one day. They couldn't find an ending to Layla, and everyone was just like throwing their arms up and being like, I don't know what to do. And the drummer came in, didn't say anything, just sat down at the piano, looked at everyone, and he goes, I have the ending. And they're like arguing. They're like, what? And he just goes, opens like a thing of music that he just kind of came up with. He sat at the piano and just goes, and just played the outro verbatim. Just no, and they were like, and Clapton just goes, that's it. That's the end. But not everyone was like that. Everyone was like, the fuck is this? A lot of people were like, the fuck is this? And Clapton was like, no, that's the outro. And then the drummer killed himself and his family. But that's like a whole nother
It'd be funny. He's like, yeah, that's the outro. So what are we getting for lunch? He's just like focused on something else.
yeah. It's like, but that wouldn't happen if like Clapton wasn't open to that. And now it's like one of the most talked about outros in music history.
Yeah.
I go back and forth. Sometimes I listen to it, I'm like, I fucking hate this. And then sometimes I listen to it, I'm like, I'm glad this is this is part of this song.
I know the unplugged version more than the actual. I'll have to go back and listen to it.
I don't know if they ever really did the outro live that much. They kept it a lot in studio, especially now. If Clapton does Layla, they won't do the outro.
Yeah.
I think. I haven't seen him in forever, but yeah, like you're right. It does. That does equate to like comedy and acting and directing and stuff as well. It's just like you gotta be down for what they want, and sometimes it changes as they direct you. So you're just like, as long as you're malleable. The whole point of acting is being malleable.
Right.
The whole point of being a stand-up is not being malleable. It's being rigid in who you are, no matter what gets thrown at you.
Well, I think it was a Comedians in Cars thing, but it's like stand-up is being more of yourself. Acting is being anyone but yourself. In a way, because you do bring some of yourself to acting. Like you're like, oh, it's not 100%, but you are trying to be someone else, do someone else's words, make that character come alive through your, I guess, experiences and decisions.
There were probably a lot of people that could have played Iron Man and done it well, but because it was Robert Downey Jr. specifically, his style, he will forever go down as people will be like, no one could do that job.
I'm calling it right now that when they recast Iron Man, they're going to use Ryan Gosling.
God, I hope not. See, that's the thing where I'm like, I think he could do okay at it, but I don't. Robert Downey Jr. is now the only Iron Man. No one could do it. But that's again. So I don't know if you know this. Sam Rockwell, Eddie Redmayne, all these big actors actually auditioned to be Iron Man, and Sam Rockwell got pretty far.
Yeah.
And he's one of those, like, when you think about Sam Rockwell, like, he kind of has the vibe that
he was so good in Iron Man 2 as Hammer.
He was great.
He was like, that scene in the airport with the food was incredible. Right. He's making the dude order the food, and he's like got the waiters and.
Yeah, but what did he come off to you as? Because to me, he came off as sort of like a poor man's Iron Man, like a second-rate or even a third-rate Iron Man.
But that's what he was playing.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Why I think why can they cast him for that when he didn't get the role of Iron Man?
Yeah.
But that's because, like you were talking about, even though acting is being someone else, you are you. You can't change your face and what you do, so you have to be yourself at least a little bit. Like Robert Downey Jr. being himself as Iron Man was the quintessential Iron Man. Sam Rockwell being himself as Iron Man still probably would have been great, but it's not quintessential what Iron Man should have been.
Yeah, and we only know now because he was Iron Man. So it's like a lot of like, it's very endgamey with the timeline in itself, even discussing it.
Yeah, but part of you kind of knows, like.
Yeah, we kind of know.
It wouldn't have been as good, but it would have been good. It just wouldn't have been.
Well, we don't even know if, like, because Iron Man was so good, the first movie, that it kind of set the rest of the series into making Iron Man, them relying on Iron Man to be part of the universe more. Like, maybe it would have been more Captain America if Iron Man did bad, not as well.
Yeah, like if Sam Rockwell was Iron Man, maybe it would have been more of a Scarlet Witch-leaning storyline or something,
Yeah,
like
maybe not that one, but like other ones. Yeah, I mean, then again, like Hulk kind of like bombed with, bombed box office wise, and then they had to redo Hulk like 3 or 4 times to kind of make it. I love the story about Iron Man, like Robert Downey Jr. When he thinks he's gonna get it, he goes to the comic book store, buys all the comics, and like makes a shrine with like crystals and stuff, and like because he wants the job so bad.
Hilarious.
It's like that's like the most LA way of like getting the job is like make a shrine with crystals.
That makes me feel weird about Downey Jr. Because I kind of was like, you know what? When I was in line for this commercial I was on Avails, and I was so proud. It was another one that was like for a Finnish accent for a video game character who was like a ice wizard from Clash of Clans who throws ice shards. And it was like, I went in, nailed the Scandinavian accent, and I'm like, I'm fucking Asian. Like, what am I doing this? And I nailed it, and they loved me. And I improvised the entire thing again. Callback, improvised, did one with the accent, did one without. Got on Avails, and I'm like, dude, I'm booking this.
Yeah.
I'm like, pure talent. Like, everyone else, of course, is white and looks like they could be from Finland.
Right. They come in with an axe and like a beard.
Yeah, and with the head of some enemy that they chopped off.
Where doth I record ist.
Yeah. But I'm sitting there, but I remember being on Avails and they kept pushing the dates back. And it was like a 10 grand commercial. I mean, Clash of Clans is a big thing.
Yeah.
And I'm so sure I was going to get it. I meditated in my bed every day and just thought about for 10 minutes, like, I'm going to get this. And I didn't. They ended up releasing it after pushing the dates back twice. And I was sure I was going to get it. And, with commercials, when you don't get it, you just move on, right? Because you're crazy if you don't. So I moved on, but now I realized my mistake was I didn't make an ice wizard shrine when I met it.
Well, now you have the secret antidote to book everything is you get the crystals, you make a shrine, and that's how it works.
Yeah.
That's the clip I'm going to use of this pod is like how to get booked is build a shrine, crystals.
I'm going to stick up little, like what they do now with like graphics and emojis popping up like a crystal, bloop, 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 and then it goes away. You need to get a crystal.
Yeah, someone gave me a crystal as a gift, and I think I threw it out after a while. I was just sitting, I'm like, this is dumb, and
That was part of the Reiki joke that you like that I do, where I think I added a thing because it's about my ex-wife, and she was big into like Reiki and crystals and stuff.
You were married?
Yeah.
Oh wow, we didn't even get to that.
That's why I wrote that joke. It was like about seeing a red flag. Like, I'm the worst. How did I marry that red flag? That I didn't see the Reiki healer as like something you shouldn't. Like, we would meditate, and she would go put crystals in like the corner of the floors in the rooms and like shelves. And I'm like, if crystals look cool, that's fine. But she's like, no, it'll enhance the flow of energy. And I'm like, okay, this is voodoo shit now.
Yeah.
But the line that one of the lines I added was about Reiki was just like, in case you don't know what it is, it's like, these are people that think crystals work. And like you're sitting there like, what's wrong with you? I have brain cancer. And she just goes, rose quartz.
Yeah.
And like, does this stop metastasizing? Because that's what the fuck is happening to me right now.
Yeah, it's pretty. I just remember this part, when you're doing the arm thing and the Tibetan monks are outside or something like that. There's a part with monks and you're doing like a act out with like arms.
Did I?
Yeah. Maybe did I see like one version of it that doesn't exist anymore?
Maybe. I must have been riffing or something.
Okay.
Figure the bit out still, because like I don't have that anymore. I do have an act at the end about hoping that that's the bit that goes viral, so that I'll be headlining a club one day and have a bunch of Reiki protesters outside.
Okay, yeah, that was it.
That was the part where I was like, ready girls, get them.
Yeah.
And then just like I just hold this for like as long as I can until the laughs go away. But yeah,
which is never.
Never.
Right.
Never. No, yeah. So I was married. I don't think about it much anymore. It used to bother me. That was one thing where I learned that the industry is tough. They don't really care about your problems. They might act like they do, but it's like...
No, it's like you're here to do a job.
Yeah, but also I'm from the Midwest and I like to be here to do a job and also like make friends.
Yeah.
Like I'm friends with my neighbors. No one does that in LA. I'm friends with the people upstairs.
Yeah.
Like we hang on the roof and smoke out and like drink and talk about shit and play with my... Like, we do that.
That's good business, though. It's like you don't want to have the weird neighbor or like being on bad terms with your neighbors sucks.
Yeah, but also I think it sucks to just like, maybe not. Part of me thinks it sucks to constantly just be no more than amicable with neighbors.
Yeah.
It's like you just kind of wave and say hi, and it's like, all right, but that's the way it is in big cities. You just don't.
Especially now with Corona, it's like I don't like. I'm starting to lose the ability to talk to even friends normally that I don't see in a while. You're like, how comfortable are we? Like, after like they pull down the mask and start talking. Like, is that cool? Like, you start to like really, you're evaluating all the Corona-ness and trying to have a conversation at the same time.
Yeah. It's and in a city where we're already everyone's okay.
Yeah. Especially like when you're in one of those environments, people are like kind of talking to you, but kind of looking to see who else they should talk to.
Yeah.
Well, what are some of your goals for this next year? It's a weird time to say that, but we always try to like wrap up with goals and then also a new thing which I've been doing, which is like, what if there's one thing you could stop doing, like that you could remove from your life to make your career go better? What would that be? And like the obvious ones can be like, oh, maybe alcohol or caffeine. For me, it's like caffeine. I drink like too much coffee and I get jittery and like it prevents me from writing.
Might be mine too. Because
yeah.
I love the serotonin and dopamine boost it gives you.
Yeah.
Going back into my neuroscience lingo here, I love the boosts that the caffeine gives you, and plus you get the boost without doing the taboo things like cocaine or heroin or anything like.
Right, those things.
To heroin. Notice I didn't say the other one.
Right.
But they no, I don't really do that either much. But coffee is like, it's like I was like, I can just substitute this for something if I'm like feeling bummed out, which we always are. Like if this is the baseline of not being depressed or happy, like if on this side is happy and on this side is depressed, everyone in LA is hovering about right here. So it's like, coffee.
Like it's like right over your nose. You can't see it, but it's like.
But like it's like right here.
Yeah. We're trying to change our state. Like it's like eating and consuming changes your emotional and state.
But it only moves it to here.
Yeah.
It moves it to there.
And there's diminishing returns. Like you start to feel worse.
Yeah. And then diminishing returns because then it's going to start going like this. Is what's going to happen.
All right, you're joining me on the no coffee thing. We'll see how long that lasts.
I think that would be if I could remove one thing to help me. Does it have to be something tangible?
No, it could be like habit. It could be really whatever you want. Habits.
I would remove giving a fuck about anything that anyone. I would remove the first 2 months of COVID, being away from the store and not working, was two of the most therapeutic months of my life. Was just being away from that place and free of judgment and just doing what the fuck I wanted to do, playing drums whenever I wanted, and being like, playing along with the song and then doing a fill that I didn't even know I could do or didn't even think of it. I was like, oh fuck, that is good, and it's that little endorphin rush you get.
COVID did give some unintended happiness in ways that we didn't really realize.
That's a great way. That's a great name for a special someone will release after COVID, is Unintended Happiness.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's an amazing name for a special.
I'm always coming up with them, so.
Nice.
And then what would be some of your goals for this year coming up?
My goal is to this is another problem I have with showbiz. I don't know how to do the workflow when it comes to the business side and the interaction side of things. Like, I can put in all the work I need for the art. If you say, I'll pay you $1,000 to write this thing, I'm gonna fucking write the hell out of it. Mm-hmm. Or I'll pay you $500 to do this gig, I'm gonna perform the hell out of it. My goal is literally to figure out how to get to my goals.
Right. Oh, that's good. Oh, that's good. Yeah.
It sounds dumb, but
no, that's really good. Sometimes, have you ever heard like the inverting principle? It's like, we'll if you don't know how to get somewhere, start from the end and work backwards. You know, it's like, if like your ultimate goal, I mean, is some variation of like Netflix, album, headliner, right? And then you're like, all right, so what's before that? And then what's before that? And you kind of like work backwards and kind of create like a more tangible path than like trying to like fight through the fog and be like, how do I get this next thing, when maybe the next thing is like what's tripping you up, you know? It works for me, at least. Because I wrote a couple of spec scripts and I'm like, I'm kind of in the same place. I'm like, how do I get them to the people who need to read them? I'm like,
I mean, I don't even know where to start. Is the thing. It's just like the whole thing that people say it's so simple, and I struggle with it so much. Is like, this is a world of doers now. It's not a world of like thinkers.
That's a good one. World of doers.
Well, my buddy told me yesterday, because he got off the road with Tony Rock. He's his opener.
Yeah, and, I love Tony Rock.
Yeah, Tony's hilarious.
So funny. Oh my God.
My buddy Austin Hall opens for him on the road.
Yeah.
And Austin, I actually went to high school with in Indianapolis. It's so funny. I love out here now. Like, we just randomly figured out, like, oh, we're comedians. But he got off the road and he was just like, Isaac, he called me up, he was like, Isaac, we need to just get something started. Come over. And I got all this podcast equipment, brand new shit, tables, TVs, and set it up, plants, whatever in the corner. So he's like, it's going to be good. And so I went over and he kind of lit a fire under me. And I was just like, well, I don't know if it's going to work. I had this podcast idea that everybody liked, but I couldn't get it to take off, was playing board games and
oh yeah, I saw that on your website. Yeah.
So and I started saying like, yeah, but I don't think it's gonna work. He was like, bro, stop thinking about just tell me what you want to do.
Yeah.
And do it. It's not gonna work in the first 10 episodes, maybe not even the first 100, but we're gonna keep doing it.
Right.
Because he's like, stop thinking and do. And I just was like, fuck, he's right. The amount of times that I've thought about like, this isn't gonna work or this might work, and then hesitated in starting it, I probably could have done it and had more success with it.
Yeah, so, and it's the opposite of music, because you want to refine.
Yes.
And because you can't just like throw it out there. It's usually bad. But like like creating like a reel or like a comedy thing, like throwing it out there, as long as it's like at that minimum quality and funny level, it's like, that's usually good.
Right. I think do you think, though, it's a little bit different now in music, too? Even that the way that you can just make your own beats is so quick. You could literally just, like, take a beat and just rip it off of something and then just rip a hook from somewhere else and just move notes around and then create a new thing. Like, I know people with no musical talent, they have, like, hundreds of thousands of followers now. They're just making beats because, and succeeding by just selling them, right?
Yeah.
They just sell them online and whatnot, and it's air bits, things like that. So I think even music has a little bit of that now. We just do it. Who cares if you even make the beat and put it out and see who wants it?
There's a little bit of the like, even the blind squirrel finds the acorn with that, though. You know, like it's right. It's not. I would say there's more of a pitfall to that approach than not. There are the ones who just kind of like nail it. And it's not a function of time. Usually it's not like the more time you spend on it. Some people can be very quick at achieving the minimum kind of quality and talent level to do the music, and some it takes longer. But there's a lot of unnecessarily released music, in my opinion.
I think most of it is
like somewhere around 80%.
Yeah.
And I'm not even talking about like things I don't like. I'm just talking about like just it hasn't like it's music is like creating good music is still not as easy as like creating content for Instagram or like TikTok. Like actually creating like stuff that sticks and has staying power. Like there's a certain it's like creating a feature film versus like a TikTok video. It's like a different skill set. And it has to be learned a little bit, you know?
Well, that's why I was bringing up air bits, things like that. I'm like, nobody knows the guy. I just saw this iPhone commercial the other day that always is popping up on my Hulu because I'm broke. I don't want to pay for the ad free. And it's like, it's just this random beat that's like with this like simple beat in the back. Yeah. I'm like, that none of us have any idea who the fuck that is who wrote that, but he's getting paid. He's making money doing this probably for a bunch of different companies.
Yeah, maybe.
And he just like sits in his room and just fucking eats Cheetos and wipes it on his shirt. And, oh shit! Here, move that.
I like that move.
The fucking whoopsies. And then anyway, he's fucking.
You gotta work Cheetos into a bit. Oh, whoops.
Yeah.
Well, dude, this has been great. I really appreciate you doing the podcast. I feel like we should do it again because we didn't even touch like a lot of things. Like the stocks and a lot of stuff. We have a good conversational rapport.
Sorry,
No, I just have a list of things. Like I make a list in case like I need things to talk about, but we didn't need anything to talk about. We just have a good flow. So
here's how we need to figure out what we talk about. We got to jam together, bro. We got to bust the instruments out and take our relationship to a new level. We'll hit the limit. We'll hit the wall that you were talking about when we figure out our musical.
I'll give you a preview of what it's like. This is me in the studio. All right, do it again. All right, one more time. All right, it's not quite it. Let's do it again. That's most of my life in the studio was that. Like,
and that's what I take direction well. One more time.
Yeah, there you go.
One more time. What? A little jazz? Oh no, you just said one more time again?
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah. I mean, can you do it like you're stoned? Oh, okay. Now I know
exactly what you're talking
I know
about.
Exactly. All right. Well, Isak Allen, how do people find you? What's your socials? Let's hear it all.
Oh, I'll tell you. First of all, I do have a tangible goal: record an hour special by next year.
Oh, the tangible goal, right? Sorry, that was my bad. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the. If I had a tangible one, it'd be that because I'm getting sick of my material, but I still love it. I just want to burn it. I want to burn it, so I'm forced to write an hour.
Love it.
Which I've already started doing, but I'm just like I want to do it before I forget my oldies but goodies.
Yeah.
They're jokes that people haven't that. They're all, to me, original. None of them tread on the toes of any other comics bits. And I'm just like, I want to get that out. I want to get that out. I want people to see those bits. You find me on Instagram at the Isak Allen, ISAK ALLEN. Twitter is just at Isak Allen. Facebook, Isak Allen. YouTube is Isak Allen. Get my subs up. Let's get my subs up. I got like 117 subscribers.
Yeah, let's get them up.
I got my short film on there, by the way. Check that out. I'm going to put it on Amazon Prime soon if I can figure out how computers work.
Nice.
It's called The Impossible Choice. And it's just a 5-minute short film that went to the Austin Comedy Film Festival finals and didn't win, but almost. But, being nominated is something.
Yeah, totally.
And it also went to the LA Indie Short Fest. So Impossible Choice, watch that. It's funny, sci-fi parody. It's 5 minutes long.
Love it. The Isak Allen. Follow him. Let's add him 2 more subscribers. Well, let's hang out again soon. I'm sure I'll see you at the store once the lockdown is over. And
a month of like not doing stand-up the same way is gonna fucking murder me.
Yeah, I'm about to go do an open mic in a park. So.
Been there. Oh, that's what I was gonna do tonight. Is go hang out at that low-key outside show.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna be there. I'll be there like at 8:00.
All right.
I'll see you there.
Yeah.
All right, bro. Later.
Bring your saxophone.
My viola, you mean?
That's what I meant to say.
All right, later.